to go flying into a tackle like that is just...
Do you know why he was sent off? Because he's pish.
That's not an acceptable reason to have it, to receive a red card.
Nah,
You're pish, because if that's the case, then half a select team would have been off the park.
No, you're right though. The tackle he made making that tackle when you're on a booking, it was just ludicrous.
Yeah,
it was really, really poor. Did you see it yourself, Chris?
The Smalling sending off. Yeah, the first booking was just daft. I mean, the follow-up tackle, lunging in like that, was stupid. But especially after the first booking, you're just thinking, why bother doing it? You know,
Yeah. It's a nowhere area as well, really.
Yeah, exactly. You do that. You put yourself on a knife edge, and obviously he did that. And then we were kind of talking about it before we started recording tonight. That back four was kind of ramshackle. Well, after that, it was because obviously, what's his name, Rojo went off injured as well. You know, so it really was just stupid. And I can see Van Gaal kind of using him as a scapegoat.
It's funny though because I know I said he was special. I've never been a fan of Smalling. I remember when he played for Fulham, that season at Fulham, where he played well for a club like Fulham. You know, he played well. Very similar to a lot of these players. They play well for smaller clubs. They go maybe to a bigger club and they just can't. Like, to an extent, kind of what's happening with guys like Lallana at Liverpool. Lallana was the kind of the main, crown jewel of what Southampton did last season, him and Jay Rodriguez, but it's not really worked out for him, and that's not just down to his ability, but that's the thing with Smalling and even Jones as well. These guys, I just don't think, personally I don't think they're good enough. Jones had a run of form maybe about 2 seasons ago when he was playing at centre half, where he looked quite good on the ball. He looked like he could actually develop in that role, but they just moved him into so many different positions. He just never got a run in the right position.
He's becoming quite injury prone now as well.
Yeah, he is.
He's been out now a lot this season. He's not played too many games.
But you must have been happy to see Carrick back. I know you're a big Carrick fan.
Yeah, I'm a massive Carrick fan, but the unfortunate thing is Daley Blind's been playing very well in that position since he's come in, so I think he's going to find it hard. But I think now actually they're going to have a bit of a defensive crisis now with so many defenders out that either, I don't know if Carrick can play there constantly, but I know Blind is either a left back or a left centre half. Yeah. So they might just push him back there. But yeah, it'd be good to see Carrick back.
I know we're kind of going off in tangents, Chris, but myself and Kim were talking about this briefly in the pub yesterday, and it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. Rooney, if he was to go, which I think he should, I think Manchester United should get rid of him, right? I really do. I don't think he's as good. He's never fulfilled his potential, firstly. But now he's at that point where United tend to play better when he's not playing, I think. There's a little bit of a more consistent flow in terms of you know... He's the type of player who always wants to be on the ball, attracts the ball, but slows the play down in a lot of ways. He's a good player. What I'm trying to get at, I'm just rambling. My point is, if Rooney was to go, where do you think he would go? Do you think he'd go somewhere else in England? My bet was PSG.
Do you know, I was going to say that actually. PSG, I know they've been linked with him, and it's the sort of signing I think PSG would make. If you know what I mean, it's almost like, you know, he's a big player, a big name, you know, let's kind of flex our muscle here. There was talk of Rooney going to Chelsea. I couldn't see him at Chelsea now. Arsenal, I don't see where he would fit in there.
No, I don't either. Then again, Walcott's rattling the goals in for Arsenal, so if Arsenal if Wenger can make Walcott a good goal scoring striker, I'm sure he could do something with Rooney. Walcott, sorry. Welbeck, sorry.
What's happened? Is Walcott still injured?
Walcott's just came back actually the
weekend. Even at that though, Rooney's not an out-and-out goal scorer. Welbeck, that's primarily what his functions as. You know, he's a goal scorer. I don't see Rooney in that role. The only place I could see him maybe going would be Man City, because I think Man City, similar to the Tevez, they might see it as 2 fingers up. They don't need them. But I think that it's a possibility they might do that.
I think he would like that. I think he'd revel in that. I think he revels in being hated. I think he kind of gets off on that a little bit. So he would like, the idea of going to the rivals in a very similar way to Tevez. Just on the point of United, the derby last night, City were pretty poor in terms of the fact that they played against 10 men for a full half, and United had a couple of chances at the end.
Oh, they seem to, from what I could make out, they did miss Silva, which is a surprise because sometimes Silva can be kind of quite quiet in games, but in the derby, without him, Jovetic didn't really bring that into the game.
Yeah,
didn't really see much from the game, and as always, they always play Toure as part of the midfield too, so he's usually quite quiet. But the minute you push him more forward, he becomes more influential in the game.
Yeah.
But maybe they should have just started with Toure further up instead of Jovetic and brought in Fernando and Fernandinho together.
Yeah.
In there.
Fernandinho and Fernando are a bit too similar in terms of style, I think.
But when you're playing a Toure midfield like that, it's fine because you're going to have obviously Toure ahead of him.
Yeah.
Link up the play.
I mean, they've bought a couple of... I'm not saying Mangala's a dud, but... No, Mangala's at Chelsea, isn't he? No, Mangala's at Mangala. No, sorry, yeah. But Mangala, he's played a couple of games. He's been very poor. City just haven't kicked on this season at all. They've been...
No. I was talking to this about City to my dad briefly. That there's only one team in England that are a real sophisticated team, I think, and I think that's Chelsea.
Yeah.
I think they're the only team that I would say possibly could win the European Cup. Man City, given the squad they have and given the money they have to spend, should be able to do that, but they don't look that way. I think they won the league last season by default, and the time before that, they kind of huffed and puffed to do it. They've never looked dominant. Last season they did it because I think Chelsea were still a rebuilding phase, and obviously what happened with Man United and Liverpool, although they pushed on well, that was more of a shock in terms of they kind of fell at the last hurdle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas obviously City, I think they almost, as I said, they won it by default, and I don't think they've managed to kind of cement themselves as a proper big team, and I don't think they'll do that under Pellegrini.
Sorry.
As well, I think another thing with City as well is they've not progressed in the Champions League year on year. I mean, that's okay, but we're harsh. They're up against some big teams, but they're going to go out the group again. They're not going to get. So that's 2-3 years in a row they've not made it through.
I mean, Arsenal had a group 2 years ago, and it was Dortmund and Napoli, and they still went through.
But Arsenal are a proper Champions League team. I mean, they've been there for, Wenger's had them in there nearly every year he's been there.
Aye.
Well, we don't know about see them not qualifying. I would have said that would have definitely been the case before Roma were annihilated by Bayern Munich.
They were absolutely pumped, weren't they, Roma?
I'm not a Roma fan.
I didn't say you were. I'm just making a comment.
You're revelling in it.
I'm not revelling in anything. I'm a fan of Italian football.
I only wish Roma would win because they're the closest rivals to Juventus.
To be fair, Juve lost to Olympiacos in the Champions League anyway.
I think Italian football's not at the level it once was, and we'd both agree on that. But I diverge here. I think that I mean, I don't think Roma have won since then. No, that's not true. They won midweek.
Yeah, they drew the match after that, and then they won, and then they lost.
They lost to Napoli. Now, Napoli away isn't exactly a gimme, do you know what I mean? But psychologically, we don't know that the long-term effect of that can have. Obviously, their league form after it's not been 100% good, and we don't know how they're going to be. But I do take your point. In terms of the squad they have, they look an embarrassment in the Champions League for what they should be.
Yeah.
Another thing as well, as I read in one of the forums, Noel Gallagher said that there is no interest at Manchester City in Champions League football.
I'm just quite confused. Why would there be no interest in Champions League football?
I don't know. He says there's more interest amongst the fans in terms of the Premiership, which I don't understand. The forthcoming CSKA game has sold out now, but they had to do a 2-for-1 ticket offer apparently.
Really? In the Champions League?
Apparently they hadn't sold the Champions League out so far. I don't understand that mindset. I can't get my head around it, but apparently that's the case. They don't look in any way a team capable of doing anything in the Champions League.
But I mean, we're Celtic fans. We Celtic are in terms of the turnover and players how we've got. We know Celtic are always going to have the backs against the wall, and we know sometimes just being there is prize enough. To me, that Man City fans have no interest in that just shows you how spoiled these football fans are nowadays, that they're not turning up for the fucking Champions League. This is a club that not that long ago, in the last decade, the last decade, they were, playing Championship football.
They get relegated to what it would be now League One. Aye,
League Two. League Two.
No.
They were in the 3rd division in England, or 2nd division in England. So that's League One, right? Sorry, aye, but it was League Two at that time because it was the Premier League, League One, and League Two. Right.
Well, they were. I think the season Man United won a treble. I'm pretty sure that's the season they went down. So this is a side that, as you say, were in kind of the doldrums and the depths. They've always been a kind of a comedy club, Man City.
Yeah.
The illustrious rivals. I mean, how dominant Manchester United have been over the last 20 years. And I always felt sorry for their fans. And I know I wasn't a Man City fan. I didn't like them, but I
agree with you. Like, I always had a
grudging respect for the fact that they used to get 30 or 35,000
and thingy, and wasn't it? I could check this and I will check this, but wasn't it the story that when they got relegated, this might not be Man City actually, the more I'm thinking about it, but they got relegated, they were winning the game, and they were basically the man. Was Alan Ball told them to shut up shop, but they needed another goal to stay up.
That rings a bell. That might
they
be
needed that kind of adds into the comedy thingy. They needed another goal to stay up, but the manager basically told them, right, shut up shop. We've got it now. We've got the win, and then they didn't find out till afterwards. I'll check that. That might not actually be Man City.
They did that in the Champions League against Bayern Munich last year, didn't they? They scored another goal. They would
dicks.
But
it's funny.
It is. I mean, it's like they're just, that whole thing about it. And I remember when they went down to the 3rd tier of English football, their crowds were really big. They were really consistent. But the fact is, they don't seem to still have that passion. I don't know. I mean,
Get they sold their soul.
I think everyone really has in England, haven't they? I don't think there's many clubs that can say they haven't.
Listen, they've went from Nicky Summerby to Sergio Aguero, I think.
You would take it, but don't get me wrong, I think that speaks volumes about football in general. I think the guys that would have went to football years ago either don't or they can't afford to. It's a different game now, really, isn't it?
On that note, Chelsea, Mourinho came out and said they won at the weekend. Ciaran, you made the point that you think Fabregas is the best midfielder in England. We'll get back to that in a minute. But Chelsea won 2-1. Was it 2-1 or was it 2-0?
No, it was 2-1.
2-1. And Mourinho said it was like playing in it was like a morgue.
But from what I can, that's like most Premiership games. Because I went to the Sunderland game a couple of years ago, and it was dead. There was no chanting, there was no singing, no songs. I mean, they just sat and watched the game.
I went to, just to kind of back up that point, I went to see an Arsenal game, and it was Arsenal-Birmingham, and Barry Ferguson was playing for Birmingham. I will say it, like, when I went to see Arsenal, it was just middle-class, affluent kind of, tossers, to be honest. And I turned up and I was a bit scooshed, and every time Ferguson got the ball, I stood up and started booing him. Just for a bit of fun. Like, it wasn't in any way aggressive. It was clear that I was a Celtic fan. It was clear that I was booing Barry Ferguson. People were terrified of me. Like, it was like, when I did it the first time, it was like, oh, the more I did it, I wasn't in any way aggressive. I turned to the pals after, I was like, I'm just
give me a sample of the booing. I'll tell you if you were aggressive or not.
Boo!
That was quite camp. Those soft southern types, I mean, you would have probably been laughed at up here.
Yeah, I'd Gaylord Dandy is the nickname I'm given. Anyway, with that, just to kind of run over the English scores. Was there anything that kind of caught your eye over the game? The Southampton.
Wanyama's goal.
Wanyama's goal. You see Wanyama's goal, Ciaran?
That was a well taken goal.
Well, really, just a tremendous piece of skill. He's starting to come into a game now. How far do you think he can go in England?
I think he can do well with Southampton. I don't know if he would go any higher than that.
Did you really?
I don't know if he could get in the top 4.
Do you think he'd get in the Liverpool team? I think he would.
Well, he could get in the Liverpool team, I suppose. If he keeps improving, people would argue he could get in the Arsenal team, because the Arsenal fans, I think, from what I gather, have been crying out for a kind of solid hold midfielder. They don't seem to think Arteta does that well.
No.
I mean, that's what Arteta does, but...
And Flamini's just a thug.
So it looks like they're kind of looking maybe back to when Song used to be there. They also want a replacement for Song.
It's a big call to get Song back.
Song's been terrific for West Ham.
For West Ham. The whole West Ham team. I mean, what Sam's turned around in the summer is quite scary.